Hello and welcome to the Subaru World of Cycling. I'm Nick Vinden, filling in for Senor Mike Tomalaris, who is living and breathing Spain with the Vuelta now underway. Plenty to look forward to on today's show. Here's what's coming up. We speak to the pro trainees chasing the dream of a World Tour contract. Belkin's Dutch maestro Laurens ten Dam sits down for a chat. And it's tech with Trek. Plenty of great stuff in today's show. Al Hines will also join me later to preview what's shaping up as a classic Vuelta. Don't forget to join in on the discussion on Twitter with the hashtag SBS Cycling. We'd love to hear your thoughts on all things cycling. Tell us how you see events unfolding in Spain. But first up, we head to Belgium to meet a legend of the classics.
3 Tour of Flanders titles, 3 wins at Paris-Roubaix and some 11 victories in the semi-classics. Johan Museeuw's triumphs are as historic as the cobbles on which they were won. But the man they call the Lion of Flanders might so easily have made his name at the Tour de France instead. In his very first attempt at the Grand Tour, a 24-year-old Museeuw won 2 stages and came runner-up in the green jersey.
I was sprinter. I was riding with a lot of formation. I won a lot of sprints. I was the sprinter of the team. But at the end of the year, I get a contract of Patrick Lefevre and I get to an Italian team. So we have make a transformation about me. So I don't have to sprint anymore. I have to prepare for the classics. And 1 year later, I won my first Tour de Flanders. I was fast after a hard race, but I wasn't a sprinter as Cipollini, Abdou-Japarov, as Tom Stills. I was fast, but not fast enough to say I was a sprinter. I was more a classic rider.
With a relentless record of wins, the dangerous and unpredictable pavé made him a hero. But in 1998, they were almost his ultimate undoing. A fall in Paris-Roubaix shattered his knee. An infection threatened him with amputation. Shortly after, a motorbike accident put him in a coma for 8 days. He was to find glory again in a race that brought him destruction, but it would be a hard battle.
Everything is difficult in the beginning, even to walk, even to eat. You have to learn everything again. But after a couple months, if you can biking, you feel progression, and after 1 year, you feel the same again. So it's hard, but you have to motivate, because motivation is everything. It's all between the ears. Everything is between the ears. The motivation was to win again Flanders or Roubaix. So after my engine in Paris-Roubaix, 2 years later, I won again Paris-Roubaix. So maybe that was the biggest victory for me. After 8 days in coma, I won again 2 World Cup races. I won 13 World Cup races, and that was my motivation each year, to win Flanders, Roubaix or another World Cup race.
That winning motivation encouraged Museeuw to hone his skills further. Back in the formative years of bike science, he pioneered the use of the latest technological advances and many training methods.
Because of the terrain being more difficult now, the trainers have changed their technique. Before, I just used to ride for 6 hours at 30 kilometers an hour. But now, with the involvement of computers and heart rate monitors, a lot has changed. Everything is more accurate. Now I know scientifically whether I've had a good training session. Whereas before, I would just ask myself whether I trained hard enough or too hard. With these methods, you can't question anything.
Podium after podium, he confirmed his status by becoming world champion in 1996.
I would 3 Flanders, 3 Roubaix, 2 times World Cup winner and 1 time world champion. To be honest, I have to say, to come world champion is something big, but to win the world champion is something special. But year after, each race you can wear the world jersey. It gives a special feeling. So I have to say, to win the Worlds in Lugano in '86 was for me the highlight.
The title sealed his place in the rich and successful history of Belgian cycling, following in the tracks of Rick van Steenberg, Freddie Martens and, of course, Eddy Merckx. Having equalled Museeuw's record 3 wins in Flanders in 2012, Tom Boonen has arguably taken on the baton, but who follows him seems undecided.
After Boonen, we have nobody. So we still have now Boonen, he is a winner. And other countries coming, Australia and other countries, they coming without have experience here. They make the experience, the preparation over there in Australia. That means they have already thinking about everything. So we have to be careful. Now we can still say we are the country of cycling. But I'm afraid in about 5 years we can't say that anymore.
The pull of the big money and big status at the Tour de France may be luring young talent elsewhere. But for the man who came to conquer them, there can be no better feeling than winning on the cobbles.
The Tour de France takes everything. If you prepare and if you win and if you are successful in the Tour, then it's great. But to say Paris-Roubaix, Tour de Flanders, it's similar as to win on the Champs-Élysées. It's similar, it's the same. But inside my heart say the classics are very important.
Belgian legend Johan Museeuw reflecting on life, both sporting and personal, and paying Australian riders a huge compliment in the process. After the break, we catch up with the youngsters who are chasing a dream, becoming part of the pro peloton. Don't go anywhere. While all eyes have been on the big money transfers this summer, some of the freshest faces in next year's World Tour are getting their first trial of life on cycling's biggest stage. Stagiaires, otherwise known as trainees, have until the end of the year to make the kind of impression at their trial team that could earn them a pro contract.
My name is Oliver Nassen. I'm 23 years old and I'm a stagiaire for Lotto Billisol. Well, the first day I'm the rookie, so I come at the table and the guys are all talking about stuff that happened in the Tour de France and the Giro, and I'm just sitting there a little bit awkward, but they're all very, very nice, and I feel good in the group and I'm really having fun now, so it's great.
He is a very good, the thing I saw till now is a very good domestic. He can ride in the front, he can go in the brakes, he protects them from the wind, the leaders, so we are very satisfied with how he's doing now.
Right now I have to work for the team. I have to close gaps, I have to get drinks. I have to get Lars Bak to the finish, Tosh van der Zande, Chris Boekmans to the sprint, so I got to discover a bit what my specialties are. If I wasn't a stagiaire, I would be working in a company that sells clothes to big companies. I quit to become a stagiaire with Lotto and hopefully a pro.
Hi, my name is Maksat. I'm stagiaire for Team Astana. I like this team because this team Pacific atmosphere, and I can't believe it because this team it's a dream for me. It's my dream. I can't believe.
He's a talented rider, I think. We all think, and he has shown good results this year in Astana Continental team. So, as we are some Kazakh riders leaving the team or stopping the career, so we need some new Kazakhs in the team. So, he was one of the best this year in the Continental, and that's the reason why we take him probably to the big Astana team.
My favorite rider is Vinokurov. I watched on television 2005 on Tour de France. He winner last stage.
My name is Magnus Kort Nielsen. I'm stagiaire for Orica Greenedge. I think it's a really good team for me, and I'm really looking forward to the next 3 seasons.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious he's one of the biggest talents that the under-23 scene has seen this year, with 11 victories so far, and yeah, he's big talent. I've noticed him over the last 2 years. He's not so long into the sport. He's only been riding the road for 3 years. He comes from a mountain bike background, but he's certainly got one hell of a kick on him, especially when the sprints are a little bit uphill. So he's had a super season so far, and I think he'll go into the World Championships is definitely one of the favourites for the under-23s.
I only have 1 race as a stagiaire, so it's just to learn the team a little bit. Really looking forward to everything. I think to do some of the big races, really big stars, and classics, and also to find out if maybe I can win a race. It would be really nice.
Continuing our look into the technology of professional cycling, from the aero to the carbon, it's all in the research and development. 20 years after becoming industry pioneers in the production of bonded carbon fibre frames, Trek invited us to their combined factory, headquarters and research centre in Waterloo, Wisconsin, for a lesson on how they've developed some of the lightest and strongest road bikes in the world.
We have a massive engine here at Trek, an engineering engine. It's what sustains us, and the fuel for that engine is R&D. We prove out absolutely everything we take to production before we take it to production. And the beauty of that is it's really just about science. You make a hypothesis, you develop a piece, you test it, works, it doesn't work, and you start all over again.
Paul Harder is responsible for putting prototypes to the test.
It's more about high-end performance, ride feel of the bikes, not so much is it going to break or are there going to actually be structural problems, but is it going to feel great going around a corner at 50 kilometers per hour? Is it going to feel great in climbing? Is it going to be fast? Is it going to be comfortable? So that's kind of where I come into play and get to play with all sorts of interesting sensors like high-speed cameras, strain gauges, accelerometers, things like that. There's a ton of unknowns in cycling science. Race cars and airplanes are really well studied, but things that go 30 miles per hour are sort of a new frontier in science. So especially in the realm of aerodynamics, vibration, things like that, all those topics at those kinds of speeds and realms are really new and sort of cutting edge. So it's challenging, but it's also really fun because we can really break new ground in science and not just be relying on F1 technology or airplane technology that might not necessarily translate.
One man who knows more about the production of high-quality carbon fibre road bikes than just about anyone else is Trek's Jim Colgrove. He pioneered the company's optimum compaction low-void manufacturing technique.
The OCLV process is similar in some ways to the manufacturing processes that other companies use. Most bicycle companies are using a bladder molding technique, which means that you have a female mold that is the external shape of the part that you want to make. You put carbon fiber into that female shape, and on the inside of that you put a bladder or a balloon. This can be pressurized, and this pushes the carbon fiber out against that mold or the female shape, and after curing, creates the part that you want. Really, this is the beauty of carbon fiber, because we can nearly infinitely vary the angle, plies, materials to custom tune, if you will, every part of the bike for the job that it has to do. Minimizing weight, maximizing performance. When we started building composite bikes back in 1992, it was really pretty easy to carve a pound of weight out of like a current aluminum bike or almost 2 pounds out of a steel frame of the era. So just by changing to carbon fiber, using round tubes, simple connections, it was very, very easy to get that kind of weight reduction. Now, over the years, because of competition, because of the weight that we are trying to hit, the weight targets that are so light, we have to use sophisticated finite element analysis. We have to use computational fluid dynamics if it's a highly aerodynamic bike, and then we couple that with the engineering that we have learned over the years to make the kind of product that we can build today.
Unsurprisingly, Trek also has an eye on a development with the potential to revolutionise their manufacturing process, 3D printing on an industrial scale.
Additive manufacturing, especially with advanced composites like carbon fiber, is going to be huge. When we can develop the processes that we can use out in industry on a day-to-day basis, not specialty small lab types of things, where it is right now in many cases, it's going to be, it's going to truly be a breakthrough.
Trek Factory Racing Team, one of the 22 that lined up last night in Jerez de la Frontera for the first stage of this year's Vuelta. After the break, we profile another participant, Belkin's Lawrence ten Dam. And Al Hines drops by for his thoughts on the race that is shaping up as the most competitive Grand Tour of the year.
Not since 1980 has the Netherlands had a Grand Tour winner. Over the years, superstars have been tipped, but have yet to reach their full potential. One man who's been quietly chipping away on his own terms is Lawrence ten Dam. Turning pro in 2004, he suffered through, in retrospect, what has been the dirtiest period for Dutch cycling.
I got through that area by taking little steps higher, you know. Every contract was a little bit more money and always a little bit better results. And at the end, turned out I'm a lot better rider now. I think I will push a lot more watts than when I was 23.
And push more watts he did. At this year's Tour de France, Lawrence finished as the highest placed Dutch cyclist.
Actually, I was really happy. I don't know why, but yeah, age 33 and finally succeed in top 10 Tour. The day after I woke up, Champs-Élysées, the hotel, I think we were in a Hyatt or something, I don't know, the hotel. And I was alone in the room and I was like, okay, still 9th in the Tour, you know. I opened like the website and saw the first 10 and it was still true. Life continues. Nothing, not that much changed, but the fact that you're incredibly satisfied with the performance, that's really nice.
To ride a bike professionally for over 11 years requires cycling to be more than just a job. We caught up with Lawrence as he rode the Prudential Ride London Classic, and the Dutchman took the opportunity to sample the cafe culture London is famous for.
You know, the bike scene really, I'm still like a fan, you know. It's obviously when you're 33, but I'm still like, also when I see the 8-year-old kids, I see myself as an 8-year-old kid, you know, and maybe also once it's a dream for me to start up a shop like that in Maastricht or somewhere in Holland. And I was pretty happy to see how busy it was and the concept, and it works obviously in London, and maybe it's also going to work in Maastricht.
A cafe in Maastricht may be a welcome addition and a profitable business for Lawrence, but his passion for cycling and loyalty to his team still keep him going. With Team Belkin's future secured for a further 2 years, his priorities lie on the World Tour.
Normally I still got a contract with a team, so I'd prefer to stay obviously, but yeah, we'll have to see, because I got 1-year contract and the team continues now for 2 years, so I hope to negotiate a little bit more, and otherwise, yeah, we'll see. But that's tough for the managers, and for now I just want to do a good Vuelta, you know, and then we'll see.
A hectic race calendar has kept the Dutchman busy for the remainder of this season as he prepares for his second Grand Tour. Lauren's approach to racing is a little different than others. When asked if he would like to be anyone else in the peloton, he considered the sacrifice needed from those to achieve the ultimate accolades.
In a current peloton, I'm pretty satisfied with myself, so I don't know if I want to change with other riders, because I know what I do for it and how I work for it, and I don't know how the others work for it, but maybe, you know, for example, I was allowed by my team this year to go to Turkey to train 3 weeks on altitude there, and for sure I would like to swap with Nibali for the results to win the Tour, but he was maybe for half a year on El Teide, you know, in the same hotel room, and while I was doing my training rides in Turkey, fishing and barbecuing. So you have to count every single thing then, and then I would prefer to be myself.
Team Belkin's Laurens ten Dam, a man who does things on his own terms and one who is competing in this year's Vuelta. Joining me now to discuss the season's last Grand Tour is a man for all terrains, Cycling Central's very own Al Hines. Al, welcome back. What a mouth-watering lineup the Vuelta is boasting this year. So many good names. Headline maybe you could say by Chris Froome. How eager will he be to atone for the disappointment at this year's Tour de France?
Yeah, well, firstly, Vindo, thanks for the welcome, and it's good to be back in town. It's been a nice few weeks in France, but good to be back in the studio. It's a crazy field for the Vuelta. We wouldn't have said that even a month ago because the guys lining up, it didn't really stand out. But suddenly, with Froome's crash at the Tour de France, with Contador's, people like those two have suddenly arrived at the Tour de France. Joaquim Rodriguez, he was going to be doing the Giro. Now the Vuelta is his main target. It's just such a juicy field, and it's going to be a fantastic race. But on Chris Froome, yeah, look, he is going to be really G'd. Sky haven't had the year that they would have liked. The Giro didn't go so well for them. Neither did the Tour de France, obviously, with Froome crashing out. But he'll be going to the Vuelta thinking that he can win and believing he can, because when he pulled out, there was nothing wrong with his body. It was just the fact that he'd broken a wrist. He couldn't hold the bike. That means that he's been able to train fairly consistently after that. He hasn't been able to hold the bike, but he's been able to hold the bike and race in the last few weeks, which has been fine. I think he'll be at the Vuelta, and he'll be, as I said, he'll be there to win.
Well, speaking of, I suppose, the Tour de France's losses, obviously they are going to be the gains of the Vuelta. There's another huge name, and what drama has followed Alberto Contador? He was in, then he was out, then he was back in again. Can he mentally and physically be ready to pose the serious challenge?
Well, yeah, it's been a bit of a soap opera, hasn't it, Vindo? But look, I don't know if he will be able to pose a serious challenge, but at the same time, when you say that about Alberto Contador, you end up getting burnt. So, look, I don't know what we can expect from Contador, which I think is probably a scary thing for a lot of his rivals, because they'll think that maybe he's playing mind games, maybe he isn't. My personal opinion is that I think he'll be a bit underdone. That's just a reality of coming back from an injury like he had, the broken tibia at the Tour de France. That said, there's so much talent in his body, and he's such a competitor that, look, if it's 2 weeks in and he finds himself in a position to win the race, he's going to try and take it with both hands.
And such a competitor, obviously, Australia's great competitor, Cadel Evans. I mean, is he carrying the hopes of Australia, or is there another rider that might realistically jump out? Talk first about Cadel's hopes.
Yeah, sure, Vindo. Cadel, I mean, he's the kind of guy that you never, again,